Sorry for the late update. I had some internet connecting issues, but this week is a review of a live action movie, and the movie is called The Admiral, Roaring Currents. I had the pleasure of seeing this movie for the first time at the 2015 Otakon convention here in Baltimore. I had originally showed up to the room to see a Donnie Yen movie, but somehow got my schedule mixed up, and the movie I saw was this one, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I watch a lot of foreign movies, and this is a little bit odd for me because I don't get to see that very many South Korean movies, which again is very odd given that in Baltimore and in suburbs there's a huge Korean population. Now, before I talk about the movie, I want to talk a little bit about the historical context of The Admiral. It's kind of important to know this to understand the movie. Before I start, as always, I like to apologize ahead of time for any mispronunciations that I make because I'm really bad with foreign languages. Okay, anyway, this movie, The Admiral, is based on a real battle and the Korean admiral who led the actual battle. This battle is called the Battle of Myeongryang, which occurred on October 26, 1597, during the Imjin War. The leader of the Korean forces was Admiral Yi Sun-sin. The Imjin War was another war that the Japanese had launched to conquer the Korean peninsula, but this time this was the closest the Japanese had come to achieving that goal. Their land forces had started to win battles back to back and was basically on their final drive to take the capital, which is modern-day Seoul. Interestingly, Admiral Yi Sun-sin had been demoted to just a pike carrier, barely escaped execution, and had been tortured before being thrown into the regular army. Basically what had happened was a rival of Yi Sun-sin's in the Korean royal court had orchestrated his downfall and took control of the Korean forces and then proceeded to get those forces annihilated. So, with the threat of the capital falling, Yi Sun-sin was brought back, his title as admiral was reinstated, and he was expected to somehow stop the Japanese Navy to give the Korean land forces time to reorganize and counterattack. And all he had was 13 turtle ships against the Japanese Navy of 133 warships. Okay, there is some historical dispute as to how many Japanese ships there actually were, but even if you take the Japanese records, which say that, and it's kind of ambiguous, that there were several dozen warships, the Koreans were still vastly outnumbered, which makes the Korean victory even more amazing. None of their ships were sunk, only 11 men died, and the Japanese total was 31 ships sunk, and it's believed to be that close to 2,000 men had died during the action. So knowing that, you can see why this movie is considered a historical epic. Now, within a historical epic, you get some fictional liberties going on. The Admiral is no exception, but I'm not really going to focus on that except for one glaring inaccuracy, and I'll explain that in a moment. It is actually pretty faithful to the history of the battle, with that exception in mind. But really, the movie tells the tale of Admiral Yi Sun-sin leading up to that battle. A little bit is talked about his demotion, his torture, and then his reinstatement, but it's really about him preparing for his last stand. As in real life, the movie portrays Yi Sun-sin as a previous victorious commander, so there's a lot of leadership lessons that occur during the movie. You also see secondary characters, many of whom are fictional. You get that in a lot of historical epics, but they add flavor to the story. One seeks revenge for the death of his father at the hands of a samurai. Another is a commander that the admiral favors over his own son. Even though his son was at the battle, he plays a minor role. Another is a soldier who is happily married, and guess what happens to those guys? It's just the same as in this movie. And the movie concentrates around the building of the turtle ship navy, the 13 ships. And just to keep in mind, the turtle ship was an advanced warship design. It carried cannon, was completely enclosed and armored, and the figurehead was a functional weapon that spewed fire and acid and things like that. And this is where the movie takes a turn for fiction. In the movie, the turtle ships are sabotaged and destroyed. In real life, this did not happen. 13 ships on the battle were actual turtle ships. So by the end of the movie, during the climactic battle scene, what you see is traditional naval ships and personal combat, one-on-one combat on screen. And while that makes for a good movie, it's not so good for historical accuracy. So if you can get past that, then you're going to enjoy the movie. The cinematography, as always with Asian movies, is astounding. The landscapes are rich. Naval scenes are well choreographed, which is kind of a tricky thing to do, as are the fight scenes, individual fight scenes. The script really isn't that bad if you can get past the historical inaccuracies, as well as the one other complaint I have with this movie, and it has to do with post-production. no one had thought to get rid of the wake of the Korean ships. What I mean by that is that during the movie you can see that they are motorized based on the wake. But if you can get past that, then again, this is a pretty good movie. So what I'm telling you is this: watch this movie, preferably on a big movie screen if possible, or at least as large of a TV screen as you can get. It really is pretty good, and quite honestly, better than many Asian war epics that are out there. As always, thank you for watching, and hopefully next week I won't run into internet problems and be on time. Also, next week will be an anime review, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the upcoming AMV contest. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you like to subscribe, and I will see you next time.